Hi, folks. Welcome to Crisco's Corner. Hi, guys. Welcome back. You know, we hear about lately, this is the worst since January 6th was the worst since 9/11, and the new laws in Georgia and other places are Jim Crow 2.0 and blah, 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 and everything is like all exaggerated, all like teenage girls just losing it. So I thought we'd take a good look at what Jim Crow was really and what it is today. So let's take a look. Now they say that, you know, things are so bad and minorities are having a hard time voting and all that other nonsense. And well, let's take a good look at what they're saying today, and then we're going to take a look at what Jim Crow really was. And I'll show you some headlines here. Critics of Georgia's new voting law, including President Joe Biden, said it amounts to Jim Crow 2.0, trying to limit voter participation for black Americans, which is total, unadulterated bull. Remember Joe, when he was campaigning with his vice president or Obama? They're all going to put you back in chains. I don't know how they get away with this crap, but let's continue on. What does that mean? Is the new Georgia law, Senate Bill 202, comparable to laws that enforce racial segregation or separation of public places, especially in the South? The Atlanta Journal-Constitution has extensively examined the debate around Georgia's election law, including an article about Jim Crow comparisons. Well, it's been through the court system, and the new Georgia law is not Jim Crow, nor does it do anything to discriminate. And in fact, voter turnout for blacks was higher after this law was passed. Let's look at some other headlines. These people really suck. Here's another one. Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed sweeping election bill into law. The bill faced months of opposition from Democrats who decried it as Jim Crow 2.0 and fled the state to slow his patches. Remember those morons that were part of the Texas Assembly? They all flew out of state, so they couldn't come get them to make them appear and do their jobs. That way they didn't have a quorum, and the laws weren't passed. And then they went to D.C. and flouted it. It was ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. People, it's amazing to me. It truly is. Now we're going to see a Senate hearing with our favorite, Stacey Abrams, the old race baiter par excellence, talking about the new Georgia law. It's brief. Let's check it out.
Question is for Ms. Abrams. Ms. Abrams, is the Georgia election law that Speaker Jones talked about, is it a racist piece of legislation?
I think there are components of it that are indeed racist because they use racial animus as a means of targeting the behaviors of certain voters to eliminate.
Now, think about what she just said. Targeting the behavior of certain voters. And she says those voters are non-white. And she's talking about black mostly. What she refers to as African American. Now, think about what she just said. That means she thinks that black people think the same. And that's the problem with the progressives. They don't realize how racist they really and truly are. Certain ethnicities act the same. Let's listen on.
Limit their participation in elections.
So you believe that the Georgia legislature made deliberate attempts to suppress the minority vote?
Yes.
Now, after that law was passed, there was record numbers of people voting in Georgia. Record numbers. And record numbers of non-white people as well. Here's another headline. Biden calls Georgia law Jim Crow in the 21st century and says Justice Department is taking a look. Well, they took a look. And so did several court cases when they were sued. And they all passed muster easily because it wasn't. They used the fact that, and I can't go into detail because this website won't allow it, election security as suppressing voters from minority voters, which is total nonsense. And you have to ask yourself, Why would they want security lapses in the voting system? Not having faith in the voting system is one of the easiest ways to destroy a nation. Let's check out some other headlines here as well. It's amazing to me. It truly, truly is. And here's another one here. Election Integrity Act is Jim Crow 2.0 voter suppression. Now look at these morons. It's amazing to me. Anybody that's eligible to vote that was turned away, I haven't heard of one person. Not one person. Unless they were newly moved into an area, then there might be some dicey things maybe on a number of days you were in a certain area like that. But it has nothing to do with color, ethnicity, or gender. It is total bull. Jim Crow era voter suppression tactic cloaked with a deceptive frame of election integrity. We have to have our honest and fair elections, and they have to be safe. Here's another headline here. Are today's voter suppression laws the new Jim Crow? A new surge in voter suppression laws is once again targeting people of color. In history and today, many educators have stood up for democracy. They want to make it so easy. If it was up to the Democrats, you could vote online. You could vote online if it was up to them. There's no security. There's no signature verification. There's no ID. And there's tons of videos here on YouTube that shows, I think Amy Horowitz, I forget his first name, his last name is Horowitz. Amy Horowitz goes around talking to white liberals in New York University. And they say how black people just don't have access to the internet and they can't figure it out. They're a nice way of saying they're too stupid to do it, which is not true at all. And then he goes to Harlem and expresses the opinion of these white liberals to real black people. And they're like, what? Everybody I know has ID. Who would talk like that? That's racist. Because the progressives are the racists. They always have been. Let's continue on. It's a miracle to me to get away with this nonsense. And there's one here when they were storming, I believe it was the Georgia State Office building. Stop voter suppression. How do you sleep at night? Well, I don't think they lose any sleep because it's not voter suppression. These people are part of a cult. They want the integrity and security of election up for grabs. And you can fill in the blanks as to why. Like I said, I can't go into detail because this website won't allow it. And they actually believe this. They are brainwashed cult members. It's just truly astounding. Here's another one. 4 ways Jim Crow 2.0 is shaping this presidential election. And that was the presidential election of 2020. Now, I went to Wikipedia. Not the greatest source in the world, but some things that's okay. And got what Jim Crow laws really were. And then I'm going to show you some pictures of what Jim Crow was really like. The Jim Crow laws were state and local laws introduced in the southern states in the late 19th and early 20th century that enforced racial segregation, i.e., separate theater entrances, separate bathrooms, separate everything, drinking fountains, separate voting, if you could vote at all. Jim Crow being a pejorative term of an African American. Yeah, it was a slang negative term, like a minstrel show type character, and you'll see the original picture of the Jim Crow here later. Such laws remained in force until 1965. Now, that's my lifetime, and a lot of people that are listening this lifetime. That wasn't that long ago, and how far we have come. South Carolina, called the most racist state in the nation because they're the first ones to secede from the Union before the Civil War, have a black U.S. senator. And there were black Congress members all over the South. In one lifetime, we have come so far. Formal and informal segregation policies present in other areas of the United States as well. Even if several states outside the South had banned discrimination in public accommodations voting, Southern laws were enacted by white redeemers, dominated state legislatures to disenfranchise and remove political and economic gains made by African Americans during the Reconstruction era. And by the way, all those states and municipalities that passed these Jim Crow laws were Democrats. Such continuing racial segregation was also supported by the successful Lily White movement of Southern Republicans. That's a lie, by the way. That's a lie. There were very few Southern Republicans. I doubt if you count them on one hand if they were 10% of the people that were in charge of making laws in the South. So that's why I don't like Wikipedia. They lie so much. In practice, Jim Crow's mandated racial segregation in all public facilities in the states of the former Confederate States of America and in some others beginning in the 1870s. Jim Crow laws were upheld in 1896 in the case of Plessy versus Ferguson, in which the Supreme Court laid out its separate but equal legal doctrine concerning facilities for African Americans. Moreover, public education had essentially been segregated since its establishment in most of the South after the Civil War. Companion laws excluded almost all African Americans from the vote in the South and deprived them of any representation. All of that is true. And that's what Jim Crow really and truly was. For those of you that think the statement about the Lily White movement of Southern Republicans is to blame, when the Civil Rights Acts of the 1960s were passed by Congress, Lyndon Johnson, a racist Democrat, had to go across the aisle to the Republicans in order for all these civil rights laws to be passed. Why? Because Democrats in the South wouldn't vote for it. It's funny how these people can get away with these lies. It's truly amazing. It truly and truly is. Now let's take a good look at what Jim Crow really is. And there you have one of the original posters or pictures, whatever you want to call it, the minstrel show, clown. That's what they used to think of black people back then. Now a lot of people have blackface, including the Prime Minister of Canada, if you remember that. And this was the caricature of what they thought of black people. It's pretty disturbing, actually. I don't care for it, but that's just the reality of history. And we have another picture here. This looks like from the clothing, probably early, mid-1960s. Negroes, when they put Negroes, that's the way they used to call it back then, are Americans too. We demand the right to vote, have zero problem with black people voting. And here's the other thing I wanted to mention. These people today, Democrats, this is Jim Crow 2.0. It's just ridiculous that people that march like this put their lives at risk, and many died for the movement to get equality in voting and other things. And to make less of that by calling it the same thing when it's not even close is incredibly disrespectful to the people that put their lives on the line, literally, for a cause they believed in. And there's a picture here, white women, colored women, separate drinking fountains and all that. That's the real Jim Crow. And if you think new laws in Georgia or Texas are the new Jim Crow laws, look at the real Jim Crow. It's disgusting. It's disgusting what the Democrats do. And sadly, millions believe it. Here's a sign that I found from a laundry. We wash for white people only. And it's amazing, but that's the way it was back then. In my lifetime, and many of their listening is videos lifetime. Here's another one here. These people are putting their lives on the line. There's that dumbass with the Confederate flag. That's a Confederate battle flag. It has nothing to do with, but they used it for racist purposes. More than 300,000 Negroes are denied a vote in Alabama. These people marched, and many of them died. Murdered. Lives ruined. Physically assaulted. Many spent months in the hospital and worse. So saying something is the same as it was back then today for a simple law change for election integrity is telling these people what you did means nothing. And here we are. Jim Crow must go in Brooklyn. Now this looks like mid-60s. And here we go right here. Here we go. Nice young man, nice tie-on hat. U.S. ready for prosecutions in Negro balloting. This was the reality of Jim Crow. It was horrible and it sucks. But to say that's going on today is so disrespectful for the men and women that fought hard to get the right to vote, which they already had, and put that franchise and exercise it. It's disgusting. And the more they call it Jim Crow, the more it lessens what those people did. And here we got another one here. The black man ought to be educated, and he can vote versus whites. It's ridiculous, but this was the reality back then, and this is what they thought of black people. It's disgusting and it's terrible. But to compare what's going on today to something you don't like, compare it to what these people went through, is disgusting. Here's another one here, a march. And you see there's a lot of white people in there too. This wasn't just a black issue. And there's another one, waiting room for white only by order of police. And that's the way it was in the South. So I'm going to stop here with the slideshow and try to make a point. Here's a minstrel show caricature that's disgusting of a black person. And that's the way the Democrats in the South thought at the time. We have come such a long ways in one lifetime. I was born in 1956. In fact, I just had a birthday 3 days ago. How far we have come in such a short time. People are just arrogant, and they think if change doesn't happen in 20, 30 years, it's too long. History is a long haul. To go from chattel slavery to a U.S. Senator and even President of the United States in 2, 3 generations. All the Jim Crow laws of the 1950s and 60s, gone. Even earlier, actually from the 1870s all the way through the 1960s. In my lifetime as a young boy, all gone. So to say that election integrity laws or the new Jim Crow 2.0 is such a disservice to the men and women who fought hard to get the rights that they already had so they could exercise their franchise to vote and many other things. It's just so disgusting. And it's the same Democrats that are doing it now. It's the same soup, these Democrats. It's the same soup, just reheated. What do you think? Until the next time, goodbye and good luck.